It's a very strategic project. Basically, it's focused on the big picture. And what is important to bear in mind is that ASEAN community is not for its own sake. The reason why we have ASEAN community and to build an ASEAN community is to allow ASEAN to have a bigger presence, stronger voice, and be able to deal with other regional blocs, other bigger countries, and hopefully we can preserve our role country in Southeast Asia. So that underlies most of the work that we do in cobbling together an ASEAN community plan. And it is the biggest factor in my opinion in the ASEAN leaders' vision going forward. So they think that individually we may not be effective. Individually, some ASEAN countries are quite small. We have big countries such as Indonesia, Philippines, continental Southeast Asia. We have big countries like Myanmar, Thailand, and Vietnam. But individually, we really cannot do as much as being together as an effective regional body. So the idea is to really have this community to take us to another level. But I must confess to you, back in 2003, when the idea of community was first floated, there was a debate among the ASEAN leaders on how to describe it. You know, there's one particular point which everybody agree, we are not aiming for a political union. Yeah. So when the leaders look around the table and when we give some examples of other regional integration efforts, the European community idea was quite exciting. We did not plan to be a European community, but the concept of the community became quite germane for the leaders, and they thought that, yeah, let's do an ASEAN community based on 3 pillars, one on political security, one on economic, and one on social-cultural cooperation. And that's how the community came about. But subsequently, the word community is being referenced as a yardstick for ASEAN integration, and many of the commentaries in academic circles and the media circle focus on how ASEAN has not yet been able to achieve the European standard. So that's quite unfortunate, but at that time, the leaders, they were really quite interested in finding a label or description to show how ASEAN would continue to be an intergovernmental body, yet working together for a common purpose and gathering strength as a grouping in certain areas and keeping us being the critical grouping with regard to managing the different major powers' interests in Southeast Asia, and later on, in particular, how to balance the different dynamics of the major powers in the region. So that's the background. And until today, I believe the ASEAN leaders still look at this big picture and feel that the community project is worthwhile. Unfortunately, there are quite a few things that happened in the last 5-6 years. I have here in this PowerPoint slide, China is assertive. Yeah. It has now become the world's 2nd largest economy, and according to my statistics, it's the world's largest trading nation. So it's the 2nd largest economy in the world, and it's the world's largest trader. Yeah. So of course, this comes with a certain consequences. particularly in recent years in the South China Sea when China asserted its claims in over some parts of the South China Sea. In fact, if you follow the 9-dash line, it's almost all of the South China Sea. Then India is also activated now under the new Prime Minister, Narendra Modi. India is not only looking east. The Prime Minister of India wants to act east. So far, he has visited various countries in the Asian region. So hopefully, these act east things will crystallize into something very concrete. And as a result, Japan is also calibrating its position, and it feels that something ought to be done about the constitution, which many politicians in Japan feel has fettered the effective foreign policy of Japan. And then the US seems to be unwilling to share the stage because it is regarded as a status quo power, not really able to take in all the changes and the new realities in the region. Maybe they do, but they have not shown the readiness to work with the other countries in a more congenial way. For ASEAN itself, two of our biggest countries, Indonesia and Myanmar, is undergoing various domestic developments. In particular, Indonesia is seemingly becoming more protective of its local economy, the companies. And in the case of Myanmar, they just finished one of the, I would say, most inclusive and in many, according to many accounts, fairest elections in recent years. But transiting to what? No one knows. So all these add to the sense of urgency for the ASEAN leaders when they look at how to go forward with regard to the construction of the community and to preserving ASEAN flexibility and ability to manage the different powers impinging on Southeast Asia. Globally, the situation is very unsettling. Here I have Europe distracted. You can see, read about all these challenges European countries are facing these days. Middle East is boiling, yeah. From time to time, it really, the pot has overflow, yeah. But what is happening to the Arab Spring and the intensity of the ISIS onslaught across Iraq and Syria. And again, the USA is seen to be not exerting leadership due to domestic pressure. The economic growth in the US is not fantastic. And more importantly, a presidential election is coming. So again, all these add to the overall background, the setting that motivated our leaders to be working on an ASEAN community. So cohesion of ASEAN hanging together, 10 of us is better than one by one, as we say. And then we can use our existing mechanism, the ASEAN Regional Forum, the East Asia Summit, the ASEAN Defense Minister Plus, which means ASEAN Defense Minister plus Defense Minister of China, Japan, Korea, Australia, New Zealand, India, USA, and Russia. So this is a rather good power gathering of the Defense Minister. Until today, two other dialogue partners, namely Canada and European Union, are not in this ADMM Plus, and various diplomatic effort is made on both sides to either be there or not having them included. So that's another story for another day. Overall, therefore, the thinking is that being together, being cohesive, is the best option forward. No doubt we have some obstacles in our community building and integration of our economies, but when you net out the future and the options available, creating an ASEAN community and realizing it to give it effective outcomes, to make it more useful, seems to be the best thing to do. So hopefully the new ASEAN 2025 document going forward for the next 10 years will buy us additional time for the individual ASEAN member states to grow, to prosper. Under the old ASEAN Community 2015, the one that has just been succeeded by this ASEAN 2025, 4 countries, namely CLMV, Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, and Vietnam, actually have 3 more years to finish some of the action lines in the economic integration plan. So they have until end of 2018. And the unfortunate thing now is that Indonesia and to a certain extent Philippines are saying that since 4 countries still have 4 more years to go, for Indonesia and Philippines, maybe they can just join this late bloomer, as they call it. Yeah, but Philippines and Indonesia were the original 6 in ASEAN, so we are trying our best to keep everybody to finish whatever action that the ASEAN 2015 had entailed. So 2025, this is the story. We believe that is a comprehensive review of the picture that we have. We took into account the changes affecting the region, the global situation, and what realistically can be done. So if you look at this book, there is no fancy new initiative. It is basically really putting all together many of the ongoing activities. And as I noted just now, the IAI and the connectivity initiative are very important component of the ASEAN community building and integration. So that will also be integrated when the respective work plans have been finished next year. In conclusion, I would like to stress 4 elements in the ASEAN 2025. Basically, we look towards a more integrated ASEAN region, more integrated. We have the blueprints. We hope that these respective action can be implemented within the next 10 years. In some cases, work has really started. In other cases, we depend on the completion of some of the old action lines under the ASEAN 2015 plan. And we are also going to be more innovative. This will probably come about as we go into actual implementation of the ASEAN 2025 vision. Yeah, we cannot constantly ask for more resources and ask for the support of dialogue partners and so on and so forth. We basically have to innovate, adapt whatever we have, and make it more result-oriented, more outcome-oriented, rather than just making all the usual nice statements and feel happy with general outcome. Then it has to be more inclusive. The idea is that it should be all-encompassing. Various segments of the population in ASEAN countries which feel they are not really into the ASEAN community agenda would be brought into the framework. This is particularly so in the ASEAN socio-cultural community pillar. But in the economic side, there is also the concern of the SME, or now called the MSME, micro, small and medium enterprises. Micro means mom and pop kind of business enterprises. So the concept here is more inclusivity, more inclusiveness. And lastly, the focus will be on infrastructure development. And in this respect, the China's One Belt, One Road, the China's initiated AIIB, Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, together with the existing organization that we have in the region, such as ADB, Asian Development Bank, will be very important. Again, this last element is something that requires a lot of mobilization of resources, and going forward, ASEAN countries will have to come out with more innovative ideas of bringing in resources and expertise to achieve the infrastructure development. So integration, innovation, inclusiveness, and infrastructure, those are the key takeaway for us as we look at the ASEAN 2025 agenda. I think I'll stop here. Thank you very much for your attention.